Okay, welcome to 3D Character Modelling and Animation Workshop, week 6. And first of all, let me start off by saying again, apologies for not being there. I've unfortunately had an injury and I can't make it in today, but I'm going to record the lecture that I would have given you anyway. And what I'd like you to do is get on with the work, and so apologies for that. Okay, today's session is really all about the foot roll and sort of leg controls. But when I say foot roll, what I mean is reversed foot. So what we're going to go through anyway, I'll just quickly go through what we're going to go through. We're going to look at the reverse foot and some controlling attributes, curves and things. Then I'm going to take you through how to do the pole vector and set driven key orientated things. So at the end of today, you should know those types of things. Let me just quickly show you before I start. So this is the well, it's kind of what we're aiming to get at by the end of today. If you look in the channel box here, you can see I've got these attributes that are all zeroed and everything. But I want to show you how to get to this stage. So I've got this left foot roll, and if I middle mouse button and drag backwards and forwards using my virtual slider, you can see that I've created a system that enables me to create very quickly what it is that I want to animate. So I can go from the sort of full. So very quickly, if I move this around a bit, can create pretty effective positioning for feet. Okay, I've also got these other attributes in here. So I've got something called a toe wiggle. That's fine as it is, and also I've got these other attributes which I can actually, if I go back to zero these out, if I just take the zero translation out and set that back to zero, back to default position, I've got these other things here which I can do them independently, or I can work through them. So these are the kind of the gives you more flexibility. This is kind of quite an automated system for foot roll. Okay, so let me start off with the default scene. So I'm just dragging this scene in here. I'm going to make the view here. I want these two views because I want to be working. I don't particularly like the outline, or I prefer this hierarchy method, this hypergraph. It's just I find it a bit more useful. There's a lot of stuff in here, but you'll get to see. So what I want to do first really is I want to make this curve now. Rather than spending hours and hours spending time effectively doing loads of work on this, I've basically made this curve already. But all I've done is I've made a circle and moved the. I'll show you. Control vertices, and I've moved these around to fit the shape of the actual circle. I've also then frozen the transformations. You can see they're all zero here. So when I start animating this, it'll be from this point here. So what I want to also do is I want to start this reverse foot. I need to make another skeleton. Okay, this can control this skeleton here. But rather than using constraints and things, what we need to do first is we need to draw some IK handles along here to be able to move these particular joints. So if I come into my IK handle tool, and again, you don't necessarily have to have, if I reset it, you don't necessarily have to have a rotate plane solver, but I just automatically go to single chain, I can't remember what it's called now, rotate plane solver. So if I come in here and I just click on that, and if I just do that again, click on that, click on there. Basically, I want to make two new IK handles. So I've put an IK on the leg, which is what we dealt with last week, and I want two new IK handles that enable me to link onto the new skeleton that I'm going to make. What I now need to do is I need to make a reverse foot skeleton. Now, if I turn the mesh back on, what I want, as you saw in the demo that I just shown you, I want to be able to pivot the foot from the back here. So I'm going to need to put a joint here and draw it from here to here to here to here. So from the ankle to the toe to the ball to the ankle. Okay, so say ankle. So from the heel to the toe to the ball to the I can't remember what it's called now, ankle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with, I'm going to go into my joint tool. So wrong skeleton joint tool. I'll just double check that and reset my tool. Now I'm going to come into my side view to start off with, because I want to start off by making a joint accurately at the side. So if I press, oh, wrong button, press X, not V. If I press X and make myself a joint on the grid there, you can see it's made it in that correct position. If I then move this little fella back here, so I know if I press V and this one, I know that that's going to be in that position, directly in the correct. You know what I need, basically I need it to be in line with this with the skeleton, because I'm gonna snap to these different ones. But I also need it to be, this particular joint needs to be at the pivot point at the back of the heel. So again, depending on the mesh, it's about there. I want it to pivot from about there. Okay, so now I've got that, I can get rid of the mesh, I don't need that anymore, and I can go back to my joint tool and click on my joint. So obviously there's not a point there, so I couldn't have clicked it there in the first place. So I'm just wondering if I'm recording this. Let me just double check. Oh yeah, I'm still recording. Let me just pause that. So I'll just double check that I'm still recording. I think I am. Yeah, there we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now snap in a backwards fashion, not in a forward. So if I press V and I'm going to snap there, and snap there. Okay, and hit return to get my skeleton. So now I've got this reverse foot thing going on. I can now rotate this little fella in this angle. One thing I do need to make sure that I'm doing is I need to make sure I've got these positions, but you can see I need to freeze transformations. So modify freeze transformations. Okay, I should have done this on all of them. So I just come back into here, find my skeleton. So in here, freeze transformations. Okay, modify. Let's double check that. Make sure joint hierarchy is set, and then I'm going to just make sure that I come in, and when I go to my where we go, well, can't see the trees there. Come into my orient joint, and I'm going to orient them. Okay, that basically sets the local rotational axes to be in the right position that I want. So when I rotate this, I'm rotating it on the Z here. That's what I want to rotate. Okay, so we've got ourselves into a situation now where I'm ready to start a new part of this. So essentially, what I should do is now name. Actually, before I go ahead and name them, what I want to do, I'm going to link them up. What we've got here is we've got ourselves a situation. If I just maximize, get rid of that, come back into this double view and maximize that. So we've got these IK handles here, like so. Okay, so what I want to do really is I want to use this, as I said before, use this joint chain to control these here. So let me start off with the ankle. Now the ankle the reason why I've drawn these joints and snapped them to them is I want this particular joint here. So this joint, which is this one joint here, to basically be the IK handle to be parented to it. So I'm using the IK handle, which is here, and I'm going to parent that to that joint, like so. Same thing in here. So this is that joint. So here we go. I'm going to grab this IK handle, which is this, and I'm going to parent that to that. Double check, both in the same position. Okay. That's cool. And then the last IK handle, which is the toe, he says, toe, which is this joint here, and again parent it to that. Okay, so what we've got here, and again the last thing I need to do is parent the control curve. It needs to be the root of everything, so that's going to be parented. The joint's going to be parented. So what we've got here, we've got the hierarchy sorted out, which I then need to now go and name in a second, and I'll show you in a second. I'm not going to go and name it, it'll take too much time. But what we've got here is we've got ourselves a basic situation. So I'm selecting the controller here. I'm selecting the controller, and I can move the controller, and it moves the whole leg. And you'll notice that it doesn't actually, if I put the mesh back on, oh, I need to skin it as well. I'll open another file for that. But you can actually see that that it actually moves it. But then if I get on to the next joint, which is this heel, I can actually also rotate the foot from the heel as well, like so. And the same thing coming back down here, I can rotate the foot from the toe. Okay, and it basically it gives you much more accuracy in how you deal with the character. So I'm going to open up another scene now. Okay, so what you can see now is I've just named these scenes in this extra scene, and we've got a situation here where the IK handles. You can see here I've named them left foot control 1 and left underscore RF, which is which is the heel, and then the toe and the ball and the ankle. And you can see here I've named them left underscore IK, which is for the IK handles as well, which basically correspond to the rotation of these particular named conventions. Okay, you'll also notice that I've named them so that you understand what they are. So RF is reverse foot. So that's what those are the things that I'll be animating. These are the elements that I'll be animating, and these are just kind of there to help me understand what I need to link things to. So you can see the toe is the toe, the ball is the ball, and the IK handle is IK handle. Just a kind of an organisational thing. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to sort of start making some attributes. Okay, so just give me 1 second. Okay, so on this particular controller here, you'll notice that we've got quite a lot of different attributes that are put on when you originally make an object. Now we've got the scale and the visibility, which we're not actually going to use those because we'll never animate the visibility and we won't animate the scale of this. So what we can do is we can select them. If I've selected the curve here, the foot curve, like so, and I'm gonna grab these attributes, and then I'm gonna come into my edit menu and put the channel control to start off with. So if I go to visibility and then grab my scale and then move these away, you'll notice that you'll see they disappear from in here. If I just close that, basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to clean my scene up, okay, because I want to add some more attributes. So I also, if I come down to this, go to this edit menu and go to this add attribute, I want another attribute to enable me to work on this effectively. So I'm going to call this left foot roll, okay, like so, and I'm going to leave it its default positions. I'm going to put I'm going to basically put these numbers in which are like a floating number. So if I take -5 and then the maximum is going to be +5. You can put any numbers you want in there, but I'm just going to work on a 0 to -5 to +5, and I'll put default is going to be 0. So if I add this, watch what happens up here. If I press add, it puts me another node in here, which is what I was animating earlier on. Now I'm not going to go through all of them, but basically you can go through now. If you know what you want to animate, you can go through and add all the nodes that you'll be animating. So you want a heel rotate and a toe rotate and a ball rotate, but and a toe wiggle as well. But rather than putting that, I'll close that down and I'll open up another scene with those elements already made. Okay, this is where we get into a situation where we're going to do something called set driven key. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to link up these attributes that I've made here, and I'm going to link them up to the role here, and I'm going to make sure that I make like a set driven key thing, which basically is a relationship editor. So if I it's easier to show you as well rather than just try to explain all of it. So I'm going to use this as a driving force, the attribute underneath the foot control, and it's going to drive various different things in here, which namely is going to be the rotations of these joints here, which in turn will drive the IK handles, which in turn will drive the rotations of these skeletons. But that's got overcomplicating it. So if I select my foot control and come into my animation menu and go set key, not set key, set driven key, even set. So the thing to understand here is I've got a driver and a driven. Okay, so the driver is going to be my attribute here. So if I load the driver and select the left foot roll, okay, as a driver. Now the driven is are going to be the all those joints so that I just mentioned. So double check. So we've got the heel, we've got the toe, we've got the ball, and we're not going to rotate the ankle because the ankle won't need rotating. I'm going to rotate the ankle from this point here. So if I load those as driven, now I know because I've basically oriented my my local rotational axes, I know that I'm going to be rotating on my Z from memory. Let me just double check that. So if I go into my if I just go to my ball and then go to, just to double check, if I go to ball and then go to Z, if I rotate, oh, it isn't Z, is it? It's going to be X even. Sorry, X. So I need to go in here and select my X. Sorry, not Z. Oops, schoolboy error there. If I just, yeah, X, you see, rotate X. Sorry, my mistake. Okay, again, what's useful about that mistake is you need to make sure that you look and remember how you set your when you reset your local rotational axes with the tool, the orient joint tool. You need to check which ones you set the settings in. So yeah, I'm dealing with the X there. Okay, so I've set up my controller, which is the foot roll, and that foot roll is going to in turn rotate these particular joints. So at the moment, what we've got is if I select the thing, this is on 0. Okay, so I want to key that. That's the default position for the kind of the you know, that's when it should be at 0. I'm then going to change it to -5. Okay. Now, when I go to -5, basically I want my rotation here to be up like so. Okay. So I've changed my my attribute here under my left foot control to -5. I've then selected the actual the heel and rotated that, and then press key. What you've got is, if I now come in with this and use my virtual slider, you've got an automated system now. So it goes down to 0. If I change this to 2.5, which is halfway between the default. So I want to use my ball roll now, and go to my ball. Okay, and then let's at this point I want the foot to come up. Now if I turn the mesh on just to double check what's going on. Okay, this isn't a great skin on this, but if I'll just roughly do it, there we go. So that's something like that. Turn the mesh off again. So that's on 2.5, and if I press key, okay, I've keyed at that point, so it's going to rotate from the furthest extent down to the flat foot, then up to the ball roll. Now, and I'm going to change this to 5. Okay. But this time, rather than I want the ball to be 0 because I don't want the foot to be in a curve when it's fully at the top. So I want to go back to my ball and I want to 0 that out. So if I 0 that out like that, but this time I now want to go back to my toe and I want to take this up. And again, I'll turn the mesh on just to check that this is looking okay. So take this up to a reasonable place and then press key. Now just double check what I've done correctly. So you can see now I go through the whole process because I had that in between bit. So at 2.5 we've got that in between before it starts to lift up and be a sort of fully fledged foot roll. Okay. Now there is another element that I can use with this, which is something called toe wiggle. Now if you notice with this ball, so I mean the skinning is not great there. I apologize for that. But basically with this roll, okay. You could argue that you could start this off with a slightly bent toe, so it's sort of bending, curving further back, and as it goes through the process, the bent toe comes down and lands a couple of frames after that point as this starts to go up, okay, and then this comes up, and you could argue that it flicks behind itself. So it depends how advanced you want it to be, but that's a basic foot roll, okay. Now, if I 0 this out, I'll get to the kind of the other bits, the toe wiggle in a bit, but what you can do is you can also use the heel here, so in this exactly the same way. So if I load the driver and make that as a heel, okay, and I know that it's the heel rotation here, so I want to load that as driven, and it's the X rotate, isn't it? So again, the X rotate on there, if I, again, it's on 0, so I know I can key that at this point, so double check that heel's 0. Again, I've set my drivers to be -5, like so. I'm going to come back and I'm going to rotate this. Oh, wrong one, sorry. The heel. to -5, or something like that. If I press key, then I'm going to come back in and press +5. So, well, let's say +5. Just press 5, and I want to rotate this down. So if I go back to the heel again and rotate this down like so, and press key. So I mean, basically, I've just done the same thing on the heel here. So if I use the virtual slider, you can see we've got the two things working together. Now, if I'm at a point in this foot roll where I can do this foot roll at any point, but I can also add to that by having the heel at certain positions. Now, it's not highly recommended that you do this kind of thing. If I personally, if you're going to do a foot animation, I would use the foot roll for a walk cycle, for example, and then I would, with more sophisticated animations, I would use a series of these types of joints animations. So this is just like rotating a joint, really. But because you've got the reverse foot, it enables you to have a more sophisticated way of working. Now, the whole point of this is so you can actually rotate rotate the heel from the heel, and then from the toe and the ball. It just gives you a bit more flexibility in how you deal with things. Okay, so we'll open another scene now to explain something else, but that's kind of the basic foot roll. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I've opened another scene with something called a bend deformer in here. So what I've done is I've selected a series of vertices on the actual mesh. Let me just open and show you the bend deformer. So come down here. Let's just move this out of the way a little bit. Okay, this bend handle here. And I have basically made it so if I come into my bend and then the curvature, I've got a little wiggle on there. So like so. So I've just done that really by selecting some of these vertices. Okay, I've applied a bend handle, a deformer to that, and then I've snapped the bend handle to the to start at the joint. So if I just turn that off again, so it starts at this point here. So if you look at if I grab the bend handle, I've snapped it to the ball of the thing. So it wants to bend from this particular point. So essentially, I've done it there because I'm going to link it. I've linked it onto the toe. So check where it's linked onto the toe, yeah, and then is it onto the toe? Yeah, onto the toe. And what basically, because of the mesh, is the verts that I've selected were kind of around that toe area. So I've linked it onto the toe because basically it could have been linked onto anything there, but I've linked it there because the vertices that I've selected are these ones around this toe area. Okay, let me just turn that off. So now what I want to do is I want to add to my my foot roll and make it a bit more sophisticated. So I've loaded in my driver in my set-driven crew the foot roll. Now I want to show you about the bend handle. So if I come into the bend handle, just zero that out for a second. Now on the bend handle, I selected the bend handle here and I put load driven. Now it's a little bit complicated to get in here, but essentially you've got to navigate through a few different things. So I've selected the bend handle, and you can see it's bend 2 here, which is the input node, and then I've selected the curvature because I know through the curvature is what you animate. So let me just turn the mesh back on for a second. So I'm happy with that at the moment, and because it's default, I'm going to press key. So again, like before, I'm going to go to a point where I want it to be up. So this is a -5. So I'm going to change my curvature on my bend handle. So I want to bring the foot back a little bit when it goes up, like so. Now I know that I've changed this to be -5 because I've already implemented the foot roll. So if I key that, yeah, key that. So basically I'm adding to the foot roll. Okay, so now if I take the foot roll and take that back down to 0 again, so if I take that back down to 0 like that, but actually what I want to do is rather than it be 0, I want it to land after, slightly after, before it starts to pick up. So let's go for about there. So I want that foot roll to be the bend handle to be 0 at that point rather than the other bit. Okay, so if I come back in and go to the curvature. And the curvature, I'm going to just take that to be there and then press key. Okay, so what should happen now is if I grab this and then use the foot roll again, actually what I need to do at this point at 0 on this, because I've already keyed, if I put on the roll 0 and then go back to the bend handle, and then let's take this up a little bit. So the curvature at that point I want to be about there, and then press key. So now what will happen is when I use the foot roll, it'll stay down. You can see it will get a nice little flick at that point. So it's almost like it's transferring between the two. Okay, like so. Okay, now you can do lots of things here. I mean, like I said, you could wait until it gets to about there and bend it backwards slightly, and then get a little flick at the end of it. But you can see what I'm trying to explain here really is that you can add to the foot roll. Okay, so I've put a little bit more sophistication in my foot roll. Okay, like so, by adding to it at a later date. Okay, you can also go in and delete keys and stuff. So if I wanted to get rid of those little keys there, I can go into my graph editor and find my, where is it? Okay, if I grab the pen handle there, so you can see here I could if I wanted to delete this key here, delete, and what that's done is it's just taken the key off the foot roll. So rather than that little snap that I had, like so, it finishes just after. So that's a much more subtle. So I've basically added more subtlety. But I mean, again, what I could do is I could actually come in and I could edit the curves of this set of different keys. So rather than it being like this, I could edit these curves like so. If I actually curves. Tangents, free tangents, actually free tangents, and then I'm going to break that tangent as well. So you can see, like so, I can actually look at what the result is going to be. I'm going a bit off track here, I'm afraid, but it enables me to kind of deal with how this moves into there, and it's like I'm animating really, but I'm animating in a much more automated way now. So basically, all I need to do then is animate this foot roll to enable me to work with that. I am going off track a bit there, so I'll stop with that. But I'm just explaining that you can actually have quite a lot of control over that by animating this process. Now, the big problem with doing too much of this stuff is if you over automate, it restricts you when you're animating, which is why I've put these extra attributes in here, because they enable you to have that extra control and that more versatility. And this foot roll is really just an automated process, whereas these, you could still do a foot roll with these, take it a little bit longer, but it gives you more versatility for more unique situations. Okay, so I've done pretty much all I need to do on this particular scene. I'm going to open up another scene now and then carry on. Okay, so some of you may or may not have noticed that when I was working with the foot roll, there was some weird things going on with the knee. So if I come in and I'll show you, so if I come back into my my foot roll again, like so, I'll just emphasise that I've just obviously worked that one through, but if I emphasise that, let me move this up. Oh, wrong one. He says there's not any issues here now. There we go. See that's happening. It's twisting. See the knee is twisting around here. Okay, and now this is because of something called a zero that out. Did I zero that out? Put that on 0. Okay, something called pole vector. Okay, so the pole vector, essentially, if you look in here, the pole vector is a thing which enables me. So if I implement the IK here and move it up, and if I select my IK handle in here, get rid of the mesh for a second. So select my IK handle and press this button here, which is the manipulator button, or show manipulator button. This enables me to have this thing called a pole vector, like so, and I can actually decide which direction my knee goes in. I mean, I did speak about it last week, but there's basically you can actually create a pole vector control, which enables you to link this attribute to this object and animate it. Okay, so if I zero these out again, so 0, like so. Now the way we do this is we select the IK handle. Now I'll probably get this wrong if I do it. So yeah, IK handle. And then shift select my my controlling element, This is a constraint that we need to do. So it's basically, you could go ahead and select this, but it's a constraint. If I press pole vector, I've done it the wrong way around. Select that, and then come in and select the IK handle. Pole vector. Where are we? Pole vector. There we go. So I've had to select the controlling object first, and then the pole vector. Now that enables me now to if I leave this up, I've got this attribute which does the same thing. So rather than just press the navigate and find the IK handle, and then press the manipulator button, it enables you to use this particular a curve essentially that I'd zeroed out for resonance transformations to work with the pole vector. Okay, so that just sort of fixes that problem really, and it enables you to have much more control over the lower body. Now, a couple of tips that I want you to do. So obviously you've got the left foot done there, and I've named everything left foot underscore etc. And you can see I've named even the pole vector left underscore pole vector. One thing I'd recommend people do now is go and do the other side. But if you notice when I was doing the foot roll, for example, what it might be useful to do before you go and do the other side is on the joints at certain points in that foot roll, it might be an idea to stick to these numbers, write these numbers down. So that's a negative 40.55. Okay, so we know. When I rotate my foot roll back to -5, that joint there is the rotate X is 40.55. Okay, minus 40.55. And what I'd recommend you doing is perhaps going through and doing the other side, but actually just keeping the same numbers. That'll give you some consistency in the mesh. Or you might want to do them at the same time and go through and do when you do one, do the other, do the other. I perhaps recommend people doing one foot first and getting their head around it and understanding it, and then what you can do is you can go over and just kind of do it on the other side, but then make a note of these numbers on the other side. So I think that's about it that I need to go through today. And what I'd like people to do is get up to this stage. Now, the master students in here, I want them to do everything in this particular tutorial, but the other students, I want certainly the undergraduate students, I want to get to a stage where you don't have to do the whole foot roll, but I'd like you to have a go at doing the attributes, and I'd like you to have a go at doing these, but I won't be grading that necessarily to that level. But I want the bare minimum. I want it's set up so the reverse foot can work by just rotations. You don't have to do the set driven key if you don't want to. But again, I would recommend people give it a go. But and I appreciate it starts to get a bit more complicated at this stage, and you may or may not want to make it as automated as this. So that's all really, and good luck with it. So take care and good luck.